Hello, Drady here. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about what we learned from our first flea market.
Hey there, Drady here. So today we are going to talk about things that we learned from our first flea market. So this past Saturday we had the opportunity to have a booth at a flea market, and so today we're just going to talk about some do's and don'ts, things that we learned, things we could have done better, different things like that to help you get ready for your first flea market. So let's jump right into it.
So in preparing for this flea market, we have as a company 14 different products, one of which is a candle making starter kit. So what we did is we try to plan our inventory based on the amount of foot traffic that has been at these flea markets in previous weeks. So what we did is we did a little bit of research. We talked to the owner and the host of the entire event, asking how many other vendors there were, how many people we can expect to come to our shop or come to the flea market in general. And there was over 60 different vendors, so we figured there's going to be a lot of foot traffic, not only from customers, but from other vendors that are also selling things. So how we predicted our inventory is we didn't get too crazy. You don't want to overwhelm yourself and make like 100 of each SKU. So what we did is we kept it real simple. We did 10 of each, 8 to 10 of each. So going in with about 8 to 10 of each SKU was a little bit more reasonable as opposed to going in with like 100 of each. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because if you don't sell it all, you have to find a way to store them, and storing them takes up money, takes up time, and it could just be a whole nother ball game if you have to deal with that. So what we did, we just did 8 to 10, and if you're doing your first one, don't overwhelm yourself.
No.
Going into this, we didn't really know what to expect when it came to selling. Our main purpose for being out there was just getting our name out there, marketing, communicating with people, just selling ourselves so the community knows who we are, and just awareness, brand awareness.
Yeah, and also too, the other thing is obviously you don't want to overwhelm yourself. If say you sell out of all of your products, that's okay, because if you have like just a business card, obviously your tent will still be there. You can just hand out your business cards, because then you're driving that traffic to your website, and then you have future customers. You don't want to come with so little inventory, because you obviously, want to sell a little something. So you don't want to come with like 3 candles or like 3 products, but you don't want to overwhelm yourself and have like 30 of each. Because even if traffic is pretty big, I mean, there's still no guarantee that you'll sell all of that either. So like somewhere in the middle, like that's why we decided 8 to 10 was good for us, because one, this is our first one, so we really didn't know what to expect, but we sold, I mean, quite a bit.
We sold 45 candles in total,
which is pretty good for our very first one, and again, not really knowing what to expect, so that's pretty good. But and honestly, if you sell out, just be there talking to people and just
hand out your business card.
Hand them your business card. Just talk about the stuff that you have on your website, get them like engaged, and get them so when they leave your booth, they're like, oh yeah, I want to make sure I go on their website, and then, get them to sign up for your email list if you have one, so they can find out like new products from you, get them on your social media, all that stuff.
Yeah. And it turned out really good for us, because we were able to not only sell out of some of our products, but we were also able to tell our story and how we became a company, and what our brand means, and what the B on our shirts means right here. We got to tell them the why behind the what and the reason why we sell candles. And I feel like that made a deep connection with each person that came to our booth, because they got to see the background story and why we sell candles and why we exist.
Because that's what, honestly, if you think about it, that's what people want to know. Like, they want to know who you are, and I mean, obviously people are there to go like shopping, but they want to know your story, and so you want to make sure you tell them your story.
So at the very least, if you don't sell them a candle, get their email or share your story so they don't forget who you are.
So another thing is not to compare your booth to everyone else's booth. Because I know when we were setting up, I was kind of looking around, and because this is our first one, again, like I said, you have no idea what other people's booths are going to look like, and and then you start thinking like, oh, do we have enough stuff for our booth? You just start going through the list, comparing their booth to your booth, And there could also be other vendors that are selling the exact same thing that you're selling.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing to compare, because you're like, oh, well, they're selling candles like we are. Like, what if people don't buy our candles, but they buy their candles? So I think the biggest thing is to not compare your booth to other people's booths.
Yeah.
Because that just kind of sets yourself up for failure, because in the whole rest of your event, that's all you're thinking about.
Right.
So then you're not warm and engaging, because then you're just like in the back of your head, like thinking, oh, well, what if they like the other person's candles and not our candles? Because it's honestly true. When you go to other events, there's probably going to be, if not one, a couple more other vendors that are selling the same thing that you're selling.
Right.
But you need to figure out what sets you apart, like, from them. And most of the time that comes down to like your story.
Yeah.
So like ours is like, oh, we're a husband and wife that makes candles.
Yeah.
And that, like, that's part of our story.
And also, you don't want to compare each other, because there's room for everyone. There's enough business to go around for everyone. And it's the second you start to think it's a competition, it's the second that you get in your own way.
Yeah.
So throughout the entire flea market, we're just focused on making our tent look pleasing, making sure the people that come to our tent are welcomed, are feeling like they're recognized, that they're heard, that they matter.
Yeah.
And just building those connections. And I think once we just started going, everything disappeared. Like, we weren't worried about anything other than the people that were within our 6 feet range or in our tent. And it was awesome. We got to meet some incredible people and making those connections, not only for the intention of buying candles, but just building that relationship, that, because you never know what could come from a relationship like that. So.
Yeah, and you never know who's going to come through your tent either.
Right.
So if you're just so focused on the other vendor's tent and you're not like focus on the person that's right here in front of you, like, you could possibly miss a huge opportunity right in front of you.
Yes.
So it's like taking that time to just like kind of tune the rest of the event out and just focus on like everyone who's coming through your tent and just connecting with them, talking with them. Like, that is another thing that sets you apart, honestly, because it shows that you care about everyone coming through your tent, and you give them that attention, and you make that connection with them.
Yep. And another thing is, when people are walking by, just saying hello. You know, not making it like, oh, here, grab this, or let me get your email. Not asking, but more just saying hi.
Yeah.
Just being friendly. That can go a long way when you're doing a flea market, a farmer's market, a pop-up shop. Just saying hello.
Yeah. Because that kind of goes back to what I was just talking about, being like warm and inviting. Because when you're doing something else, you're just sitting like there on your phone and you're not really paying attention. Like, people don't want to come in because it's not that first experience, it's not that first impression. Taking that time to just say hi, you know, because that's what invites people into your tent.
And again, this is our first flea market, so we're still learning, but we're so excited because it went so well. People supported us like all around, and we're just super excited and ready for the next one.
So another thing that we did to get ready for this event was we took the time to prepare for the event.
Yes.
Especially because it's our first one and we didn't really know what to expect and honestly anything. We knew absolutely nothing. So we took the time, obviously, to make our candles, prepare it, but we actually did a little setup of what our booth would look like in our house.
In our house, not outside.
No, in our house.
House.
And because it was raining too, so we couldn't do it outside.
Yes.
But it was really important for us to like visualize, okay, this is what our booth is going to look like.
Right.
So we just pushed all of our furniture to our walls and we set up, I mean, we didn't set the tent up because that's a little extreme, but we did like our tables, the tablecloths, and we basically just set everything up as if we were setting up for the event. And honestly, that made, when we got to the event, setting up so much faster because we already had in our heads, okay, these candles go on this table and they're paired next to these candles and these ones go here. And so we knew where everything was supposed to go.
Yep.
And obviously, like, the more you do it, you get it, like, in your head. But since this was our first one, like, that's why we really wanted to do that and prepare. But obviously, I mean, the next, you know, after we do this a couple more times, we won't have to do that anymore. But honestly, doing it that first time, it helped so much because Because I don't know, setting up for the event, I was starting to feel like nervous because it was our first one. I didn't know what to expect. So I was already feeling like kind of nervous and trying to calm myself down from that. And if you feel that same kind of nervousness, like the excited nervous, when you're trying to set up, like your brain's not totally there because you're just focused on like that excitement and that like nervousness. So, being prepared, like even though I was nervous, I was like, okay, this is what it looks like. So I already knew in my head.
Yeah. It was a lot of work, but it was smooth and not overwhelming because we prepared.
Yeah.
And we had more confidence going into it because we already envisioned what it would look like.
Yeah. And honestly, that helps so much, especially like your first event. Because you're feeling that first time like jitters and stuff.
Yeah. I felt the jitters too. I was worried like, oh my gosh, I hope I say the right thing. I hope I do this. It was like really building up until the first person came to our booth. And right after the first person came, I realized that I was just blowing everything out of proportion. Like the anxiety was on a whole nother level for no reason. I was creating it.
Both of us. Yeah, we're both creating
because after the first person came and bought a candle and we made that connection, we were like, oh, this isn't fine.
Yeah, this isn't that bad. Yeah.
So don't overwhelm yourself in the beginning. It's common that you feel that because I felt that, and I'm sure hundreds of other vendors feel that on their very first event. But once you get that first person in your tent, after that it's smooth sailing.
Yeah. So another kind of big thing that we learned last night was being able to take multiple forms of payment, because we were set up with a cash box and a chip reader.
And Venmo.
And, and
personal. Zelle. And like all these other platforms. But what didn't we have?
We did not have Apple Pay or Google Pay or any one of those because...
In the middle of a pandemic where everything is supposed to be hands-free, we didn't have
that. So now that's something we learned because one of our customers was like, oh, do you have Apple Pay? And we both kind of looked at each other. We're like, oh, shoot, we don't. And so, we were able to figure it out still. But, that's definitely a big thing that we learned. So now, taking from that, we're going to, get a different card reader that accepts Apple Pay. Because we thought our card reader was, not like the best, but we thought it was pretty good. How you can swipe it, you can insert it, but we didn't even think about Apple Pay.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely one thing we learned. So just being available and making sure you have different ways that your customers can pay, because honestly, there's so many different ways to pay now. Yeah. You really have no idea what people are going to pay with. And obviously you want to have cash because there's still some people who only pay with cash.
Right.
And then there's people, then you want to have something for cards because there's people who only use cards. Yeah. And then there's people, like I know you love paying on your watch.
Right.
So, there's people who just want to use their Apple Watch or their phones or anything. So having multiple ways that your customer can pay is a huge thing. Like, don't limit yourself to only credit card only or only cash only. Yes. Because you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Because you're going to miss out on all those customers. Because not everybody carries cash or not everybody carries a card. Mm-hmm. So make sure you have a variety of different POS systems.
Yeah. So lastly, another thing that's really important is getting insurance.
Yes.
So for us, since we're a candle business, getting insurance was something that we wanted to do just because you're dealing with fire in people's houses.
Yeah.
So, and you'd like to think everyone's careful, but accidents do happen, unfortunately. So for us, getting insurance was a big thing. But another thing to consider as some farmers markets and some flea markets actually require you to have insurance in order to sell at their markets. So getting insurance is a really important thing because obviously you want to have a booth there. So if you already have that, then you can kind of...
Right, you have nothing to worry about because you already have it,
Yeah. But ours the other night didn't require insurance. We already had it. Yeah. But I know in the past when we've looked into selling at different markets, a lot of them do require you to have insurance.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that is I think, really important to look into. Because even if not, I mean, obviously you need it for the market, but it's honestly just good to have in general as like a small business, kind of no matter what you're selling. It's a good thing to have because you just never know, unfortunately.
And if you ask me, I would say if you have a candle business or if you're starting a candle business, insurance is a requirement, 100%, because you're dealing with fire, because mistakes happen, and you don't want to be liable for that. I know it might cost like $38 a month or $500 a year, whatever plan you get, but it's good to just take that pressure off of yourself and not have that cloud over your head. Just get the insurance and trust that your candles are going to sell, that you're going to be a great marketer, that you're going to be the best at flea shops, flea markets, pop-up shops, farmers markets. Just get the insurance and call it good, and then you don't have anything to worry about. And you can sleep easy at night knowing that your candle isn't out there burning down someone's house and you're going to lose everything that you've invested.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, you're not making candles hoping something will happen. I mean, you're obviously making them with the right products and the right, you're taking the time to like test it. But I mean, you can do 100 different tests on one candle, but when you take that candle out of your environment into somebody else's environment, you just never know what happens. You know, I mean, things happen all the time, unfortunately. So it's honestly just better to just be prepared.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So if you want to know what type of insurance we got, we're going to put a link in the description box down below. So then you can look into it, see what plans you like, or just honestly, just do your research to see if even there's another company you want. But honestly, it's better to have it than to not have it. Cool. And if you have any questions about what we talked about today, please let us know. Put them in the comments down below. We'll answer all of your questions to hopefully get you ready for your first flea market or anything like that. And make sure to follow us on Instagram.
It's right here.
Right here?
Yeah, right here.
And we also have a candle making Facebook group.
Yep.
The link for that will be in the description box down below. Thanks for watching us.
We love you so much.
We love you guys. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
God bless.
We'll see you next time.